Thanks a lot for taking time. The reason I decided to start the Unified Elements podcast is that I've been having great conversations about leadership and about people management as well. And I wish I saved some sort of references to go back, and refresh and send other folks towards them who are also interested in the same topics. It's also great to explore things from different points of view, right? We'll go into intros, but we are we obviously both in tech. We are on different tracks, so it's great to compare notes in terms of how I see it from my position and how you see from yours. And yeah, I think here conversation will be mostly centered around leadership and people management in tech, although I think most things will be universally applicable to other industries. Let's maybe do a round of intros and talk about the topics that we're going to cover today. My name is Pavel. I'm engineering manager at Dropbox. I transitioned into leadership track about 3 years ago now. And before that, I was a mobile engineer for a number of years, about like 7 or 8. What about you, Ben?
I'm Ben. I'm a tech lead on the mobile monetization team at Dropbox. I gave the tech lead manager role a go about the last 6 months of last year. So kind of dabbled in the people management side and tried to cross that bridge. But then before that, I've been, purely on the IC track. I started my career out working on the Human Genome Project and cancer research, and then pivoted into mobile about 10 years ago. So I've had kind of a variety of domain experiences in my tech journey.
That's awesome. The topics that we're going to cover today is a TL, tech lead. What does it mean? It's sort of like a gray area and means slightly different things company to company and sometimes even team to team. And since you also went into TLM position, tech lead manager for a bit, and then decided to go back to IC track. So this is cool to also dig in and see what the pitfalls are, like what the... I made a similar transition about 3 years ago, but I decided to stay on leadership track. So curious to compare notes. Before that, let's maybe touch on what leadership is in general. I'll start with my perspective, and then I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I feel like in general, leadership is bottoms up. Activity, if you will. This is something that goes in contrast with authority, where you are given power and you are using it to lead group of people. Leadership is essentially identifying a problem and getting people around you excited about this problem, or helping more junior team members to be more productive, or set them up for a success long term. In general, I think in order to get to TL or TLM position, people are expected to show some kind of leadership in their day to day, right? Be it a project, be it a mentorship or something else. So, and once you demonstrated the leadership skills, that's when you're given opportunity to lead people with authority. Curious what your thoughts are. Does that align with your vision?
It does, and it's actually interesting. So, one of the things that like a lot of people at work don't know about me or my friends too is that years ago I also got an MBA degree. And I had a wild idea that maybe I'd go start a company, and I thought that this would help me with that, knowing the nuts and bolts of running a company and financial statements and all that kind of stuff. But one of the courses I took was on leadership, and they had an assignment in this class where you were to sit down with an individual in your life who you consider to be a strong leader, and really kind of pick apart with them what that definition of leadership means. And I chose at the time my manager, and this was 2007-ish back then. So I really looked up to my manager at the time. He was an extremely strong mentor. He took me under his wing and was helping me, like, just kind of get up to speed technically and get up to speed, uh, broadening out my interactions with folks across the organization. And also, he was my manager, so he had that position of authority too. But he and I sat down and talked a lot, and that was like he really kind of brought home that uh, concept that you mentioned of the difference between leadership and authority. And he really convinced me, like I guess I did not really perceive that idea of I could be a leader without that authority until he really brought that point home for me over pizza one night as we were having this conversation. And he sat down with me and showed me points in my time at work where I was actually exhibiting that form of leadership. Like where I had become the domain expert in a particular piece of our code base, and I was out there improving it. And, that's a form of leadership, of becoming an expert, helping unblock things, helping really make the place better. And you don't need to be a manager to do that. And so like that was something that was kind of formed early on in my kind of like idea of what a leader is, and how that can be, like you said, from a very bottom up perspective of it's somebody on the ground who sees a problem and is looking to improve their world around them, and that inspires other folks to get behind them and move in that direction.
Yeah, I think that really resonates maybe with me. For step one, become a domain expert, and then start advocating for stuff you care about, right? Improvements.
Yeah.
The nature of software is that it gets outdated really quickly, and it needs extensive maintenance. And engineers, like people in the trenches, know the best what needs to be maintained, what needs to be worked on. And by highlighting this, that's when you start leading without authority, and get people excited. Um, I I recently watched this YouTube video on flavors of technical leadership by Pat Koa. I'll link it in description. Um, and he talks about how you exhibit leadership, and there's 3 points that he brought up. I believe for the third one I added myself. I don't remember at this point, but um, helping other people be more successful, and enabling people in general. Second one, looking for opportunities to improve systems. Exactly what you said. Aligning stakeholders, getting buy-in, motivating engineers, getting people excited around you. Um, and the third one is pushing back on things that you think don't make sense, right? Like speaking truth to the authority. If team leads decide to work on something and you don't think it's worthwhile, um, worthwhile activity, speak up and say, you know what, I think this is not this is not the best way to spend my time.
Totally.
I feel like this is the way to show leadership skills as well. Any other flavors that come to mind? Just curious.
In terms of exercising your authority too, um, as a engineering manager versus a technical lead, for instance, we sit in the same room together and make decisions about strategy and direction for the team or the product or the company. And we're both bringing that kind of expertise to the table of what is the technical arc we want to build out versus, who are the people who are maybe best to get that work in front of. Given who is the most adept at a particular form of work, or who maybe needs some mentoring opportunities, or this is maybe something that would help them grow, or this person has some really strong technical expertise on this portion of the code base, and has the best domain knowledge to get that job done. And I come at it from, this work is technically complex, or this one is going to be a low hanging fruit and a high risk or low risk, high reward kind of activity. And exhibiting that kind of leadership on kind of setting the direction in a partnership, I guess is the best way to call that. Yeah.
I like it. I think knowing the people around you, getting to know them personally and professionally, knowing what their career arc is, where they are, what they're passionate about. And I think this is actually a good segue into team tech lead section. You're essentially mentioned strategizing with team leads and defining team priorities and team goals, not necessarily in the short run, but maybe 1, 2, 3 years out. Anything else that you tech lead handles in general?
Yeah, so I think what I've found is that it involves having a really strong mental map of what you're building, what you're working in. You need to really have an idea of, from a 10,000-foot view, if somebody asks you a question about a given, maybe a potential improvement we could make to the project, you need to be able to say, yes, this is a good idea, this is a bad idea, this will be hard, this will be easy. This is what I need to be unblocked to make that work happen. And so, I think the strongest skill I found is in maintaining that mental map of what's there. Because when engineers come to you with questions for help, or you get an outside ask from some other team, or you are strategizing with designers and product, that mental map is going to be the basis, then, like, your ground truth for what you're working on. And looping back around too, I think that to the idea of asks from other teams, I found that the tech lead is really the primary point of contact for working with other engineers on other teams. Like, you're that point of interface where you have the most contextual knowledge, and you have the most ability to speak in a concise and detailed, or a concise and clear idea of, if you need X, I can give you Y, or we can do A because you've given us. And so I get other teams that we interface with, back-end teams. As a mobile engineer, we have these strong back and forths, and those kind of discussions often happen between the tech leads, because we have that ability to bring out just the most essential parts of what we're working on and bring that to the table.
Yeah, I like it. It brings up another flavor of technical leadership, right? Being able to concisely and clearly relay the idea, and sometimes by using power of analogy, especially with non-technical people. And to master that is hard job. You brought up a good point. TLs, they are constantly interrupted, right? You're saying they're generally main POCs, and they pinged every now and then. So how have you been dealing with that, being constantly interrupted, but also I assume you have your own roadmap, you have your own projects. How do you keep sane while being constantly interrupted?
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of kind of got lucky in that a lot of folks I work with are on the West Coast. So being eastern half of the country, I get a couple hours of uninterrupted time while they're all still waking up and having coffee. But that aside, I still try to, one, aggressively defend my calendar, And also, I found, I have to develop skills to triage the things coming in. Um, some issues are drop whatever I'm doing and get on this right now. We're having an outage and we need to swarm to fix it. Like that's a fire and that takes precedence over anything. Um, Other times, somebody's got a question, they need an answer next week. I can put a pin in that and come back maybe later and keep on doing what I'm doing, and so on down the line. Um, and then also, it takes really thoughtful planning, though, because I am working on my own projects. I am doing my own, I still get into the IDE and try and write some things. And I have to be more thoughtful of how I break down my work so that I can get it done in smaller bite-sized chunks. And it's about having good commit hygiene and keeping keeping the amount of like in process work down to a minimum so that you don't like you've pushed up what you have and you don't have context that's slowly decaying in your brain while you have this a lot of in process work. Because when you do that, you start dropping things on the floor and you start having misses. So like triage and thoughtful chunking of the work has been really crucial for helping me stay sane amid all the interruptions.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's, I think, a good way to put it. How do people should think about tech lead position? Is that generally a promotion or a role change? Um, I guess I can take it first. This is definitely not a promotion, at least the way I see it. Um, this is rather additional responsibility where engineer will have more opportunity to set direction and exhibit leadership. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's not. This is. I got promoted while being a TL, and so I feel like being a TL sets up the sort of conditions that make it conducive to being promoted because it's an opportunity to expand your influence and exercise your leadership skills and direct the sort of a longer story arc of what's actually happening in your project. And that TL experience, I feel like kind of ladders up like as a promotion. It kind of ladders up into the idea of maybe staff engineer, where you're working with an even larger scope, an even larger story arc across more teams. But I feel like that's not necessarily the career ladder and the being a TL, I think, are not necessarily directly.
Yeah. I've also heard recently good phrase about that applies to TLs, I think, is that while transitioning, you should shift your mindset from maker to multiplier, meaning that um, your you'll essentially have less time to make things on your own, and you will be expected to multiply others, right? Influence and drive impact through others. What does that resonate with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I tend to try to evaluate myself on how well I am leveling up my colleagues, and that's something that I keep notes on at the for annual review time when I'm writing up my self review. I do make sure that I track these kind of opportunities I'm taking so that at the end of the year I can point out, hey, I have helped get these folks get their projects over the line. And the investment I've made in these relationships and helping get people unblocked has been paid, X dividends in the impact that they've had. And so, there's a really strong return on investment in that work. And so I try to take every advantage I can to get folks accelerating like that.
That's awesome. Before we move on to tech lead manager topic, any like challenges that you're faced during the transition, and I guess advice that you can give to folks who are working towards tech lead position.
Yeah, I mean, I made some mistakes in the beginning. I made a call or two that led to having to do some rework, and it's okay. You're. I think as you step into this role, you haven't built that full mental map of the entire scope you're working with, and you're sort of impacted by that fog of war, so to speak, in as you try to get your headings. And so, as I was working in the fringes of my understanding, was where I was maybe making, a bad call here and there. And I think that those were learning experiences, though. Mitigating that bug was an opportunity to learn. Hey, here's this piece of the code I was unfamiliar with. I broke it. I learned how to fix it, and now I'm the one who has the most recent knowledge of that piece of code. So if you have questions, ask me. And so it turns in from a crisis to some long lasting piece of return on that time. So I think like trying to just look at these as learning opportunities where you're these mitigating an ugly crash or dealing with an outage. These are learning opportunities where we find just ways that software doesn't behave the way we thought it would, and we end up helping our knowledge out. Embracing those was kind of a uncomfortable step, I think, in that direction as I was kind of ramping up.
Yeah, for sure, it makes sense. I also recall in my transition from IC track to management, and what was the big challenge for me is to essentially let go of projects and, as you said, start thinking about it from 10,000 feet view versus jumping into details and trying to influence every single small detail of the project. And I had to explicitly essentially let go and step back, step away, and remind me constantly that, hey, now this is not your job anymore. So curious, did you have similar experience, or you were okay from the beginning of that?
Yeah, totally. It was, I think it's also another dimension of that transition is about developing trust and developing trust in your colleagues that they're going to get that done. And they may not do it exactly the same way you would, but they would get it done right because you have this level of trust in their skills. And, you're there to help them when they need it. But yeah, it's about, otherwise, if you embrace this idea of it, if I don't do it myself, it won't get done right. You're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe if you would have done it quicker and to the better quality, but it is a learning opportunity for other people. And if they make their own mistakes, they will grow from it. So this is something that is important to keep in mind while transitioning, for sure, from IC closer to a leadership track. All right, so I think we covered the TL part. Now, as you mentioned before, you had opportunity to step into TLM, Tech Lead Manager role. And now this is as close as you can get to EM without making like full transition, right? So you went there. What did that entail? Can you talk a little bit about what was did it add something on top of your tech lead responsibilities?
Yeah, it did. I think it was the trade off with this was that uh, I pretty much fully stopped writing code uh, as TLM because I didn't at that point I didn't have time to do it. It was all about delegating. It became a game of delegation at that point. Um, and really again going back to that trust relationship and having to just kind of like have faith and trust in the team that with your guidance it's going to get done right. Um, and then picking up on that is to trade there is I picked up more people responsibilities, and the big thing there was in uh, now I've got a mental map of the project. Now I've got to develop a mental map of the people, and understand. Hey, here's where everyone is. Like I had a general idea. Like here's where everyone is in their kind of career journey and where they are. In relation to their level, and I know kind of what work excites people and what doesn't. But now I've got to really develop a deeper understanding of that because I'm now responsible for these folks' careers for as long as I'm in this role. And I'm responsible for getting them up leveled and making sure that they're doing work that is energizing them as best as I can. And so, it's a lot of, taking over, on weekly one-on-ones with everyone and having check-ins and making sure that getting to know them at that level of what do you want your story arc to be for your career, and how can I get you there, and what work can I help as we start looking at project planning. What work do we have in the pipeline? Can I dish out to you that's going to make you feel energized and help get you, one step closer on your story? And so, it's about developing that mental map of code, of people, and then bringing all of that to the table now when we sit down and think of planning and strategy and all the kind of mechanical parts of running a team in terms of tiling out work and intaking and shipping.
Yeah, for sure. um I guess in your case it was easier because you were TL before that, so you had
Yeah,
more or less mental model in terms of what team cares about, what projects in the pipeline, and you had more or less good understanding on in terms of people. But then on top of that, you got people management responsibilities, and I also recall this transition going from IC to TLM, and the hardest part for me was that, um, as I mentioned before, I was ramping off of the project, so I still had to write some code, and then on the other side, I had to pair up people with projects, and make sure that I'm helping out at the right altitude. So, and zooming in to your own code and zooming out um, to properly support others, what was the hardest part for me. And I realized that you got like you gotta go either to IC track or leadership track. TLM is the hardest bit. Like being there in the middle, in between, is the hardest part. At least that was for me. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. I know. I gave it a go for about 8 months, and I ultimately decided to go. I was given kind of a crossroads of whether to fully go into the EM track and shed the tech lead responsibility and take on the full wear the full hat of EM and or kind of go back as a TL. And I chose to go back to being a TL. And I think like what I found was um, I actually got the most. satisfaction and most kind of rewards in my work, helping level up my teammates and being that engineering multiplier as a developer. And I felt like that was where I was really getting the most traction. Um, and maybe it's a function that computers are formal and deterministic, and people are squishy and you know, not as predictable. But I also found that as a introvert, being on all the time in meetings had really taken a drain on my social battery. And I was finding at the end of the day, after having, you know, 4 one-on-ones and a strategy session and, you know, 2 other meetings that I'm on because I'm a manager, you know, I just got nothing left in the batteries at the end of the night. And I wanted to have something there left for my friends and my family. So I ended up kind of choosing the path that let me work more technically and maybe kind of shed some of those, you know, face-to-face responsibilities. I'm sure that if I had gone fully into the manager track, there'd be less like technical face-to-face, and so it might have, you know, been slightly less. But I feel like the technical side was just generally more suited for my personality type.
Yeah. Um, I think this is really good way to put it is in the end, what energizes you the most, right? Be it helping other people, and just helping with their careers, um, or staying closer to tech, right? So you went the way of staying closer to tech, while I decided that I'm actually enjoying helping others, and I'm okay not writing code at all. Um, and I think it all started when I helped interns, and then in my at Facebook, and then I helped more junior folks here. And when I started transitioning into TLM, I and leadership track in general, I just felt more energized. I liked one-on-ones and strategy meetings and communicating, chatting with people, and getting to know people more. Um, and I think this is exactly the right mindset. What energizes you the most is what you should go with, right? Sometimes people consider transitioning into leadership track as a way to get promo quicker. And while it might work in a short run, maybe you will technically get promoted quicker. That will drain your battery in the long run if leadership and people management is not your thing. So it's a matter of just setting things up for a long run, right? And choosing IC track versus leadership track. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's for sure.
I know, like
Um,
I've worked in places like my first job was not at a place that didn't have a parallel track for uh, engineering and IC. So you would hit senior engineer, and then the next step would be manager. Like you hit the wall from the technical contribution standpoint, and now you become a people manager because you were a good enough engineer. And uh, I found the sort of from seeing how that worked. So, you know, like sometimes you get folks who are really genuinely great managers who are coming into it. They're taking that promo because they want it, and then you got some folks who are going into it because it's just the only next step. You know, because there's no parallel path available. And in that circumstance, it's the worst because you lose a great engineer by promoting them, and then you gain a manager who really doesn't want to be in for you know, the long haul.
yeah, that's I guess great thing about big tech companies, because they're generally can switch you back and forth, obviously with limitations. But
Yeah,
in fact, I think people who tried leadership track and purposefully decided that, you know what, this is not my thing, and went back, are stronger engineers in the long run, because they know what managers care about, what they expect, how to properly advertise your own work, and make sure everyone knows what you're doing, which is super important for senior and staff engineers.
Yeah. Once you've written a promo packet, you have a much better idea of how to write your own.
Yeah. That's for sure. I guess last bit that I wanted to touch on, and this is going back to tech lead topic. I've come across two types, I guess, of tech leads, right? It can be team tech lead or a team of teams tech lead. But have you seen the examples of team of teams tech lead setting up direction? What's the biggest difference between team TLs and team of team?
Yeah. So one of the things I've seen in working with someone who's in area TL is they are really focused on what are the things that we're different teams, but what do we have in common in terms of our goals? What are we looking to accomplish? And how can we do work that's a force multiplier for all of our teams under their umbrella? So, they're looking at, we'll have, like maybe a three-way conversation with all the team TLs and then the area TL, and we would kind of share what's on our roadmap, what product wants to see from us, and then we have it's a collaborative conversation about how can we try to share the work on this, and what can we do that's going to be high leverage to help fulfill all these needs? So, maybe we'll talk, like maybe there's a server API endpoint that is not optimal for what we're doing in our particular area. And, we each could be having our own individual problems with this API. But as an area, we now have sort of more political capital to say, hey, these three teams all have needs that could be addressed by improving this. And here's our idea as an area on how we can do this. And so the area TL is there as sort of that being able to stand there as the representative and can speak with, the weight of our words behind them. So I think that's one big aspect of a good area TL is when they're able to go and look across at our needs and the needs of sister teams, and can try to do high leverage things that improve the goals for all those teams. And similarly, that person gets to have maybe they can stand at maybe a slightly higher vantage point and see what changes are coming in from afar that might impact us. If we're all in an area together, we probably all have generally similar, impact by some breaking change to an API or maybe a new project coming. So they're able to be that point of contact and gather information, bring that back to us, and share what it might mean for our work as an area and our teams. So, they have those skills of being able to aggregate and multiply, and they also have, again, they have to build that mental map of a much larger surface area because, they need to know what's going on in every team under their.
Yeah, that's awesome. That makes sense to me. Position yourself so that you can affect and set up all the teams in the area for success. Now let's maybe go to the topic of career growth and development. So in the previous section, you mentioned that becoming a domain expert is very important. That's how you uncover a lot of high-hanging fruits and goals and set the strategy. Any other suggestions how you learn, how you continuously keep yourself updated to the technology, the ever-changing technology?
Yeah. So I guess, one thing that's kind of paid off for me is finding the work other people don't want to do. Like I'm an Android engineer, and honestly, there's way more. iOS is more flashy, and so it attracts more people. And so becoming like a domain expert in Android has become pretty lucrative for me in my career. It's a little bit more complicated to work on. There are more rough edges here and there, or at least different rough edges. And that has been it's paid dividends in terms of being able, like my sort of arc of jobs. Similarly, one of the things I've worked on at this job and as past jobs is worked on like mobile in-app purchase. It's a hairy problem. It scares a lot of people away. It's not pretty or flashy, and you're getting into some really complicated problems that sound scary because you're dealing with money. And so that scares a lot of folks off. But that means that there's a vacuum of knowledge. And, it turns out that being the one who understands how the money comes in is a pretty good place to be on your team because, you are the closest to the metric that matters for the company. And so, like finding that work where there's a vacuum of knowledge and really developing and cultivating an understanding of it has really paid off for me. Like finding the place that the roughest part of the code base and trying to iron that out. Finding where we're having outages more often and figuring out how to fix it. These are all examples of ways to accrue knowledge where it's clearly lacking, and all those places where you dig and you find career growth is what I've found.
Yeah, that's great. Finding work that others don't want to do. Rarely are you going to be given a nice meaty project on the silver platter. Never happens.
Yeah.
It's a matter of just digging in and uncovering what can be improved, where the impact lies. This is a great mindset. A roughest part of the code and try and make it better. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Ben, for taking time. I think we covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
So where people can find you if you want to be found?
Yeah. I'll get my LinkedIn into the show notes, as well as a link to my blog.
That's awesome. Also, I think you will be presenting in Android conference.
Yes, I'll be speaking at DroidCon New York in September.
That's
awesome. So I'll be talking about. I'll be actually talking about mobile in-app purchase. I'll be talking about what I've learned at my past couple jobs where I've worked on selling subscriptions and in-app products, and what the things are that you need to worry about if you want to make sure you protect revenue and user trust and be able to have a product that really serves you and your customers.
Again, thanks a lot for taking time, Ben. That was great.